Hello everyone, my name is Gunnar Sizemore.
And I'm Kevin Sizemore, and today we have three amazing stories about people facing challenges only on
The Miracle Show. Most of the time, when two people get together and start dating, after a while they begin to think of the next big leap, marriage.
Yeah, now we're going to talk to a couple who took that leap and turned it into an even bigger leap.
Here from Idaho are Rajim Hajir-Hassan, also known as Ray, and Katie Rule.
Hey Kevin, hey Gunnar, nice to meet you.
Thanks for your time, guys. Now let's go back to how you two first met. I understand you had just moved from Dubai to Miami, Rahim, and Katie moved there a couple of months later. You were both in a club when nature called.
The women's line to the bathroom was like 15 women long, and there was nobody in the men's bathroom. And basically what happened is he asked if I wanted to use the men's bathroom, and he would stand outside and watch to make sure no one would come in. And I said, that would be great, thank you. And then we just started talking after that.
So, Katie, what first attracted you to Rahim?
He was just such a gentleman, and he was very proper and very nice.
And Katie, it wasn't very long after you met him that you first went skydiving with him.
Basically what had happened is he told me he was gonna go do some fun jumping, and I was just gonna hang out and wait for him till he got done. But when we got there, he said, hey, I paid for you to do a tandem skydive today, so I kind of just had to buck up and do it. And I hadn't known him for that long, so I wanted to keep my cool. So I was like, yeah, I'll go skydiving.
And when was the first time you did a tandem dive attached to him?
The first time I went with him was when we first moved to the Grand Canyon, Arizona. And he said, hey, do you want to do a tandem with me? And I was like, yeah, and it was probably the next best skydive I've had.
So, Rahim, was that a test for you to know if Katie was, the one?
I think when she accepted to go skydiving, at the time that I told her like, hey, you're gonna go skydiving today, it just made me more attracted to her. I actually liked her a lot more because I thought like, oh, well, she's in the same level of my thinking, So I enjoyed that, I definitely did.
When he took me skydiving in the Grand Canyon for the first time, my least favorite part is they make you sit in the door until they give you the go. So here your legs are dangling over the side and you're looking down. And then all of a sudden they just roll you out. And that, yeah, to me, it gets me every time. Doesn't matter how many times I go, that's the part that gets my nerves.
Wow, I can imagine.
And after you guys had been together for a while, you took another huge leap and had a child together.
I actually, in my early 20s, I talked about not wanting to have kids, and my family made fun of me and gave me a hard time for it, and they said, you'll eventually have kids. Well then, fast forward time, I meet Ray, and Ray is a little bit older than me, and he's done a lot of things in his life, and the one thing he felt like he was missing out on was having a child. And then now we have Bella.
And how much longer was it after that before you became engaged?
We had Bella for about, she was about 6 months old when I proposed Katie.
So you guys weren't really rushing into it, the marriage thing, but you did decide to propose to her, and you kind of made it a really huge leap.
So the proposal day, I went and bought a ring, and the night before I actually bought the ring, and I was like, I'm gonna propose her. I really like this girl. She has been the best thing ever has happened to me in life, and I really enjoyed her a lot, and I still do. I fall in love with her up to this date, every day, more and more. There's no day that I don't fall in love with her more than the day before. It's always been more. And I was like, okay, I am gonna give her the ring. And I really do hope that she's gonna say yes, because I personally wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I actually I called her dad, and I was like, I am gonna ask your permission to marry your daughter. And he was like, absolutely, you have my blessing, you have my permission.
Ah, so you're doing it the old-fashioned way, getting daddy's permission first. Remember that one.
Because I like him a lot, and I think he's a super nice guy. I wanted to make sure that be respectful towards her family and get their permission before I marry her.
He actually had my dad and my stepmom come up, and I thought they were just visiting because they lived down in Phoenix. So I was working the front desk. There was supposed to be a gap in the schedule where I could go with him, and then someone else scheduled. And then when it came down to the end of the day, someone had canceled. And so we decided to try again.
It was nerve-wracking. It was very stressful. And I was like, if I am gonna propose her, I'm gonna propose her in a way that no one has ever done. And I wanna do it my way. So I took the ring, brought her in, attached her to myself, put the ring in my mouth, and jump out of the plane. I was super, super stoked. Jump out, and at the same time I was nervous. I probably was sweating in that cold air. Open the chute and get her settled and start talking to her. Remove the ring from my mouth, start talking to her. And I was like, okay, this is it, Ray. This is your time.
So much. And I fall in love with you more and more every day, baby.
Thanks for always taking me on the funnest ride.
Will you marry me? Yeah, baby! Yes or no? Yes! She said yes! Where is your ring? Put the ring in. She said yes!
She kept quiet for a little bit, and
I was very shocked. I didn't see that coming. And as you see him talking to me as soon as the parachute opens, we're just normally that sweet with each other, so I thought we were just having one of our moments. I didn't expect it to be an engagement moment.
so when she was quiet, and I was like, oh my God, is she gonna reject? I didn't think so, but I was like, okay, I really hope she's gonna say yes, otherwise it's gonna be very awkward landing the parachute with her. And then she didn't say anything. Then I was like, all right. I saw her crying. I saw her like being super stoked and excited about it, but she didn't say anything. I was like, okay, is it a yes or no? And then she goes like, yes. And at that moment, I had my, I don't know, I had goosebumps. I was like, wow, this is it. I'm marrying her, and she accepted it. That's awesome.
So, Katie, what was scarier, the jump itself or the proposal?
I don't know, they were both equally as scary. Because like all the TikTok video comments are, what if she said no? Would you just unstrap her from your would you just unstrap her from your parachute? I mean, I always knew I'd say yes if he did ever ask me. He's definitely the person I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Well, I mean, I just have to say there are many things about the video that's impressive. Now, first of all, you were able to keep that ring in your teeth without dropping it. I
Yes.
mean, secondly, Katie puts it on her finger without dropping it. And then thirdly, you're filming it, dude. I mean, how did you manage to keep all that perfectly framed?
I think it helps that he's been skydiving thousands of times, and when he does tandems, he actually has to hold a
camera.
a
in my hand.
GoPro on his wrist every jump. So practice. He's gotten a lot of practice with the camera.
There's been a lot of
Yeah.
training.
Yo, buddy! Give me a five. Welcome
So
back,
now,
Mother
after
Earth.
such an amazing proposal, what was your wedding like?
We actually haven't gotten married yet. And it's just because when we started to, you know, come up with ideas and dates, COVID happened. But we've officially set a date for September 17th of next year. So it'll give us ample time to plan.
I'm still trying to decide if I can do a skydive wedding.
So Katie, on a more serious question, your fiance being a skydiver, does that ever worry you?
I get that question a lot, if it worries me, and to be honest, no. I actually like him better when he skydives. He's nicer. He's more fun. And my logic, if I can't let him do what makes him happy, then I really shouldn't be with him.
I was so scared. I'm kidding.
Raheem, I have to tell you, pretty special fiance you have there.
I would say the most kind person I have met in my life, it should be Katie. She is very kind. That's how I'm gonna say. Like, she is beautiful inside and outside.
And Katie, what's special to you about Ray?
He naturally always puts me first, and I don't ask him to. He's one of the most motivated human beings that I know. He's got lots of drive, and he is hilarious. If you spend enough time with Ray, you're gonna laugh probably more often than not. I mean, I could go on, and he's such a great father, too. He's so interactive with Bella. He will change her diaper first thing in the morning, no questions asked. He's a good caregiver.
I love my family.
And finally, given that this is the Miracle Show, do you believe in miracles?
Yeah.
I definitely believe in miracles. I think Ray and I we had very different lives growing up, and neither of us had it super easy. And I think us coming together was definitely one of the biggest miracles in my life, because I've never had anyone in my life like him.
I think for me to find a true love, a true family for myself that I was always looking for, and being able to become a father was a miracle.
Well, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show.
So is that anything like how you and Mom proposed?
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't jump out of an airplane. I actually, I jumped off the couch. She actually asked me.
Now, this is Mount Kilimanjaro. Topping it at a whopping 19,340 feet, it is the tallest mountain in Africa. Now, this would be a challenge for any mountaineer to climb, let alone somebody without legs.
And we found someone who actually did that challenge. Let's go to Georgia and meet Kyle Maynard. How you doing, Kyle?
Hey, Kyle.
Hey Gunnar, nice to meet you.
So Kyle, you were born with a rare condition called congenital amputation. Can you explain what that is?
So congenital amputation is basically, it's a condition that I was born with. Doctors don't really know what caused it, but it's basically where you just have like a shortened limb of some sort. So it could be sometimes a finger or toe. To have 4 limbs affected is pretty rare, but it's about every couple thousand babies will have like a finger or toe or something like that missing. So it's just where the limb fails to form.
So Kyle, when you were growing up, did your parents make any special accommodations for you?
Yeah, there was stuff that my dad would help. I had a bike when I was younger that he adapted so I could pedal it with my arms. Had like special spoons and things that would have attachments. So basically when I would eat, the food would go and attach to my arm and I would scoop the food up. Now I have a vehicle that's modified a bit. So it's basically just got lifted up and extended pedals. And it's a normal steering wheel, lifted up extended pedals. So it's pretty, try to keep things like fairly minimal. Most things now, like my phone, just use like a normal iPhone. Just hit the keys with my arms and keep it pretty simple.
So you were the firstborn, then came 3 sisters who were all born with their limbs intact. What was it like growing up with 3 younger sisters?
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So they're pretty awesome girls, but they were, almost in a sense like my parents tried to put the focus away from the disability. And so for them, it was also kind of normal. And there would be times and instances where my sisters, we'd be out in public and see other people with disabilities, and it was like, it was kind of strange. It was almost like they didn't see the disability so much. So it was like when they would see somebody else with a disability, then it was different. There was a kid that came to school one time, as one of my sisters was a sophomore, I believe. And she came home and told my mom, she was like, Mom, this guy came to school and he doesn't have an arm. And, I wonder how he does this, I wonder how he does that. And my mom was like, you do realize that your brother doesn't have arms or legs? And she was like, whoa, I didn't think about that. So it's pretty, it's pretty interesting. It's like where the attention goes, the energy flows kind of thing. So they tried to put their focus on everything that was, that was normal with the situation. And it kind of, redirected the energy and focus towards that.
I read in your book that when you were little, your grandmother took you out shopping. What did you learn from your grandmother?
I learned a ton from my grandma. One of the biggest things was just shaking people's hands. So basically we would go, she'd set me in the grocery cart, and we'd go up and down the aisles of the grocery store together and just practice meeting people and just shaking people's hands. And she would always say, as soon as people hear your voice and they see your face and they shake your hand, then the disability would fade away. She was awesome on a lot of levels, but again, it kind of comes back to just, not focusing so much on the things that I couldn't do, but the things, that I'd be capable of.
So she didn't make any special accommodations for you either?
She had a sugar jar too that I remember was like one of my first experiences with like really dealing with adversity. And basically, when she was cooking, the sugar jar would be setting out on the counter, and I would sit on the counter and cook with her. But I would, try to scoop sugar out of the sugar jar. And so I would fit one arm inside, and I couldn't fit two, so I could only fit one. I would try to just pull the sugar scooper out and balance it on the end of my arm. And it was like a huge achievement just to pull that sugar scooper out.
Why did you choose not to wear prosthetic limbs as a kid?
We tried them. We went to the Shriners Hospital in Chicago, and they fitted me with prosthetics there. And I just remember them being super kind of bulky and awkward. They would strap all kinds of, there was all kinds of straps and different, connections, and the arms were long arms with hooks on the end, and had to move my arms in weird ways to open and close the hooks. So it definitely wasn't, without them, it was easy just to do stuff, to pick up my phone, to run around, play with my sisters, to pick stuff up and write, color, whatever I was doing, just to be a normal kid. But with the prosthetics on, it kind of limited me a lot more.
Have you ever used a wheelchair?
The wheelchair, I'm super grateful for. And I would really struggle to get around places if I didn't have it. I don't have any idea how I would. In fact, I could bear crawl places, but I can only really do that for like short distances. So the wheelchair is like one that I'm super grateful for. Yeah, in terms of other adaptations for things, I have some stools that I use. I have a stool in my bathroom to get up to the bathroom sink, and that's about it.
And now I think this is incredible. Even with your physical limitations, you start wrestling.
Wrestling was super difficult for a long time. It took me a long time to win a match. Lost the first 35 matches that I competed in, actually. Begged to quit. Parents wouldn't let me quit. By the time I was in 7th grade, though, was the first match that I ended up winning. And that was, just kind of changed my whole perspective on life and everything, possibilities, confidence, and continued to win a lot more after that, actually. It was actually qualified to go to the state tournament in my 8th grade year, and then through high school got to wrestle in one of the top teams in the Southeast.
Now, how did wrestling boost your self-confidence?
It made an enormous difference in terms of confidence. Initially, it was super difficult from a confidence perspective. It was like, it's a one-on-one sport. You're out there with your opponent, and it was, if you lose, then all of that kind of comes back onto you, right? So all the excuses that you make going into it or everything that you do, you know, and a lot of times in wrestling, like your brain tells you to go and do one thing and your body just doesn't want to do it. And so it's just made an enormous difference winning, because then at that point, you know, you realize that like you put in the effort, you know, in the training and the, you know, energy and all that to be able to win and be able to succeed. So I think sports are awesome in that regard. But individual sports in particular, you know, especially like a combative individual sport, like it teaches you something unique, something really, really different.
Your book is called No Excuses. Is there a meaning behind that title?
The no excuses motto came from my wrestling coach, actually. He said that people would complain at times, right, where they would go and say, you know, during practice, like, oh, coach, you know, my wrist hurts, my ankle hurts, and, you know, and they would want to sit out or whatever, and he would point at me and he'd say, like, I bet Kyle wishes that he had a wrist or ankle to hurt. And the kids would generally just shut up and go back to work.
So eventually you reach a point where you're not in high school anymore, and the opportunities to participate in sports aren't as open to you. So next, you write a book about your life up to that point and become a motivational speaker. How different was that?
When I first started, I was going to school to be in broadcast journalism. And then, you know, opportunities arose to go on Larry King, to write the book, to you know, just, you know, do book tours and speeches and all kinds of stuff. It was, but I never would have anticipated that would have been, you know, been my path.
All right, so now you're traveling for speaking engagements and you're going through the airport in Washington, D.C. You meet a couple of veterans and that sets you on another path.
Back in a time when I was going through some rough times myself, I was traveling a ton, I was speaking, I was, you know, going to different, you know, hotel rooms and cities and different places, and you know, I was doing a lot of it by myself. My friends were having a normal college experience, you know, back at home, and I felt very disconnected and detached from, you know, from my you know, group of friends, and just kind of off on my own, having this totally, you know, separate experience. And it was a really difficult time, and I was at a point where I was ready to quit the speaking. I was done, and I remember I talked to my mom on the way to the airport and told her that I was, you know, done with it. She said, you know, that's fine. If that's the case, if you want to go back to school, then you can do that. And I remember I came through the TSA screening, and there were two guys that were looking over in my direction that I could see had some bad burns. So I went over and introduced myself to these two guys. And you know, it turns out that they had been military police officers that were injured in like really badly in Iraq, and were in a really dark place themselves. And they said that that seeing my story was a big thing that like helped them, you know, get back on their feet. In a moment where I was ready to, you know, quit and give up myself and just, you know, really feeling, you know, discouraged, and then to meet those guys, it was like, you know, and to have them say that to me, it was like, wow. Sometimes I would go through and, you know, would forget that I would, you know, that the story was having an impact on people, if that makes sense. You know, we kind of forget the like the ripple effect that like we have through, you know, different interactions, and, you know, even like the littlest things that we go and do, and the, you know, the different interactions that we have throughout the day, you know, it makes a significant difference. And that one in particular was one that really, really helped me a lot. And so, which was kind of cool, because they were, you know, saying that I'd helped them, and they had no idea that when, you know, they said that to me, I went back to my hotel room that night, and I just remember, you know, was bawling, crying. I'm just grateful for the fact that they had shared that with me.
And at this point, you've done way more than anyone ever expected. Football, wrestling, MMA. And one day you wake up and say, you know what? I'm gonna be a mountain climber.
So the desire to climb mountains, a big part of it came from the fact that I wanted to go to places that my wheelchair wasn't gonna take me on my own. You know, and just Kilimanjaro in particular, you know, it was one that we could do and take on that was a doable mountain, but it, you know, it was extremely difficult, and we had to figure out how to, you know, all kinds of things to do it. It was a 1.5-year process to get there, but it was really a big part of the desire was born out of the fact that, like, when I was a kid, my friends would run off into the, you know, into the woods or you know, climb something and I couldn't go with him. And so I wanted to be able to do that.
But when it finally came to it, your climb up Mount Kilimanjaro wasn't just for yourself. Who were you taking up to the mountain with you?
We had we had 12 of us from as American climbers on our team. A whole big group of African porters that were with us, that were local guides and porters on the mountain, which they were incredible. There was a couple of veterans that joined us on the climb, and then our guide, Kevin, had introduced us to someone who had just lost her son 5 months before we met her. He'd been killed in Iraq. You know, she was still grieving as we met her. She told me, you know, that if her son were still alive today, you know, I'm sure that he would want to join us on the climb. Remember when we met, you know, it was just like a super emotional experience. You know, she was sharing about her son and saying that he, you know, had 3 little girls, you know, had this, you know, amazing spirit about him. You know, and if, you know, and he would just love to be able to help us on our journey. We wanted to make an impact on veterans that were committing suicide. At the time, it was 19 per day. She said, you know, that, you know, maybe there would be a way that he could join you on the climb. And she said, you know, ask if we would consider carrying her son's ashes.
Setting off on this climb, what kind of special equipment and techniques did you have to use?
So when I started climbing, I was using super simple stuff. Basically, whatever we could find that would work in terms of like shoes, you know, bath towels, oven mitts, pot holders, leather welding sleeves, you know, would duct tape those on my arms and my feet. And then had some custom climbing gear made that was like a carbon fiber. It was kind of a carbon fiber shoe, padded on the inside, and had a Vibram shoe sole on the outside, and all strapped together in a climbing harness. And we used that to get up Kilimanjaro. And without that gear, there's absolutely no way that I would have made it.
And after days of struggling to get to the top, how did it feel when you finally reached the summit of Kilimanjaro, carrying the ashes of a soldier?
The journey and lead up to that climb was so intense, and then the summit itself was beautiful, was awesome. It was, you know, you can see deep into Africa in so many different directions, but it was a sense of, was relief that we had done it, had gotten there. On our summit day, wore the ashes on my neck, and I remember, you know, really like just feeling his spirit with us on the climb, on the journey, and being able to lay his ashes on the summit was a pretty remarkable experience, you know. And it was a promise that I'd made to her to be able to, you know, to take his ashes to the top. That was a big part of what kept me going.
So, summiting Kilimanjaro is an incredible feat for anyone, but you weren't done yet. After that, you took on Aconcagua.
Whoa, wait. Where's that?
In the Andes Mountains in Argentina. It's the tallest mountain in the West.
Higher than Kilimanjaro?
By 2,000 feet. So, Kyle, how did that compare to your Kilimanjaro climb?
The climb on Mount Aconcagua was a sort of a next progression, I guess, in terms of like the challenge of the mountaineering. It was more a matter of us just going out there and doing it. People that go there, like that go to climb it, are intense climbers. You know, they're, you know, it's definitely, it's a lot more people climb on Kilimanjaro. Aconcagua is the name of the mountain, I believe, translates, it's either like gatekeeper or guardian of death or something like that. So it's, I love South America and Argentina and the location and the region that the mountain was in. We ended up spending close to a month there on the climb. My grandmother had passed. She'd battled cancer for a while. You know, for me, being there, especially shortly after my grandmother had passed, you know, was super special. You know, just to be there, felt closer to her than I had in a really long time.
But you were taking on a more challenging and dangerous climb than Kilimanjaro. Did you have any close calls?
There was about 1,000 pull-ups that I had to do through this ice field. There's rock formations called the ice formations called the penitentes. These ice pillars were brutal. A big part for me was to not focus so much on like the summit or destination, but to be able to focus on like the 3 feet that I would look at a time. When I'm hiking, I'm basically staring down at the dirt and the ice and the rock for like 3 feet at a time. And it was a big thing was just to be able to just appreciate the view that I had in the moment that I was experiencing it. It got to the top of that section, and it just immediately turned into like this really soft sand on like a steep incline. And so it was like a vertical treadmill, but like on quicksand. And so then got to the top of that, and then the boulder released. The rock slide on Aconcagua, I didn't actually see it, but it came, there's a watermelon-sized boulder that came past me about 1.5 feet away from me. My guide, who I was attached to on a rope, stuck his trekking poles, dug him in front of me. But if it had hit either one of us, then it would have taken us both off the mountain. That was kind of psychologically just brutal of like, why the heck are we there? What are we doing? I laid next to my guide, and he came and just laid next to me, didn't even say a word. I turned my head, I didn't want him to see me crying. That night, my resting heart rate was super elevated. It was going 135 beats per minute, couldn't hardly slow it down. Yeah, and it was going through a lot of that experience, like wondering what I was doing there. Had a New York Times bestselling book and successful gym and speaking business and all this stuff, and I was like, why am I there doing that? And actually, legitimately that night thought about quitting. Thought about taking a helicopter off the top, but it's we rested the next day, and then we continued on the climb after that. But it definitely, those kind of moments where you have something like that happen, like it just, can mess with you super, super intensely.
But you didn't give up. You kept going and eventually made it to the top. So, having climbed Kilimanjaro, how was it different to reach the top of Aconcagua?
I had no idea if it was going to be physically possible. It literally took everything. That was like a sense of like, whoa, like we'd done something that we had never, I never could have imagined or fathomed that, we had done that. We slept 5 nights above the altitude on Kilimanjaro. Just a totally different experience with that one. Both were very special in their own way, but the Aconcagua experience itself was really special.
And what personal lessons did you learn from climbing these mountains?
In a wrestling match, it's such a short and intense experience. With a mountain, it's a much different experience. It was just, it's more of a war of attrition, and and slower, and grinds you out, and so you have to, just endure the experience. It teaches you, I think, more than anything, patience. The mountain itself is indifferent to you being there and being on it. So the weather and all the different things that it throws at you while you're there, it's you gotta deal with it, right, as it goes.
Well, you've done so many different things and had so many different fantastic experiences. As you look back over it all, what do you think your purpose is in life?
I believe my purpose is probably helping other people, seek theirs. Again, I'm by no means, I've had that figured out, and I've gone through periods of being that depressed motivational speaker, right? Which is ridiculous, but it's true. But I know that the periods in time when I'm at my best in life, or when I'm, locked on and pursuing something that I want to, go after and pursue. And I think, helping other people get to that point too, is something that fuels me a lot.
Is there any advice you'd like to share with anyone watching this at home?
Yeah, I would say, you know, you're not alone in experiencing that adversity. You know, that life is extremely difficult and presents, you know, so many different things and different obstacles. And a lot of times, you know, people have different disabilities that they go through that can't be seen. It's easier to look at me and see some of the things that I've gone through, you know, but I can't necessarily go and look at everybody else and see what they've gone through. I can't look at you and go and see the, you know, the challenges that you've been through, but I know that they're there. But it comes back to, you know, that purpose question, right? Like, if we have something that we're locked onto, that we want to really, you know, take on and experience, you know, something that makes life, you know, worth all the struggles and, you know, the crap that goes along with it to try to, you know, to get to the good stuff. The more that you do that, then the more, you know, the ripple effect of that can be pretty profound.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle, thanks so much for being on the show. Incredible.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. It's been awesome.
So as Kyle's story shows us, there are times in our life where we all have to face challenges. Some are big and some are small.
And some are big, furry, and have sharp teeth. Our next story brings us all the way to Bradbury, California, where we meet Sitlali Morinico and her daughter, Hailey.
Hi, Kevin. Hey, Gunnar. Thank you for having us on the show.
Thank you so much for being here.
Sitlali, I see you've got your dog with you. What can you tell us about her?
We've had Valentina for 3 years. She's a Yorkie, and she's my emotional support animal. And she's extremely important to me, and I think to all of us, to all the family. She's the baby of the family. She goes everywhere with us. She goes to trips, the store. She goes to work with me, and she never leaves my side.
We have 4 dogs. Of course, we have Valentina, the Yorkie. We have 2 Chihuahuas, Sparkles and Wednesday. And then we have a lab mix, TJ.
And you guys live up in the hills where there's a lot of wildlife.
There's probably like everything that you could name, really.
We've seen lots of deers. I mean, we see deers every day.
There's also just like more docile animals. We have rabbits and like your common like skunks and opossums.
And what about bears?
Bears are really common, especially right now. When we moved here, there weren't that many instances, but now that it's summertime, food is more scarce. They're just looking around, trying to find things and trying to survive, really. That's all they're doing. You might see them on Monday night or Tuesday morning because that's when trash day is. They're just scavenging for food, but they have come really close to us, but we're always inside our house.
Well, not always. I mean, you did have one pretty close encounter recently, right?
I was out with my family in the garden. We were gardening, trying to fix up our yard and put in some flowers. The bear was probably just crossing through our yard, trying to get back because in our backyard we have like this forest, and it was probably just trying to go through or get some food. It wasn't trying to bother anyone really, but it was just my dogs who got in the way.
So then their dog sees this bear running around on their lawn and they're thinking, hey, what's this guy doing in our yard? And then this happens.
Now, Hailey, can you describe what we're seeing in this video?
What you're seeing in the video is me running. My dogs are barking at a bear, and they're getting way too close to the bear, doing really dumb things, and I counter by doing my own dumb thing, and I push the bear off of the wall that it's on. And some may say it's heroic, some may say it's stupid, but I guess I did save my dogs.
So was it just instinct that made you run toward the bear?
I ran to the bear because the bear was actually picking up Valentina here, and I knew that it was probably like a life or death situation for her. So because she's my mom's emotional support animal, I had to act and do something. So when I did eventually get to the bear, I wasn't thinking, but the first thought I did have was to push it.
So now it's a push scene around the world. So when you saw the video footage from your security camera for the first time, what'd you think when you saw Hailey pushing a bear off a wall?
I was horrified. I was really afraid. At that moment, I was no longer thinking that she was safe. I was just thinking, what could have happened to my daughter? And I pretty much had like a panic attack. I started crying. Everybody started crying and hugging Hailey and telling her that we were happy that she was fine. And just being thankful that she was fine.
And when you see the bear snatching up Valentina, how does that make you feel?
At that moment, I don't think I was thinking about Valentina that much. I kept looking at that video over and over and over. And every time that I looked at the video, I see that Hailey's so close to the bear's face that, I don't know, it just makes me not focus so much on Valentina, but in Hailey. But I was extremely grateful that Valentina was safe.
Were any of the dogs injured?
Although they were not deep, but she did have a few scratches. We thought that TJ could maybe have suffered some injuries, but he was fine. Nothing happened to TJ.
And what about you, Hailey? Any physical injuries?
When I pushed the bear, I did get a sprained finger and a scraped knee, and I always think about how funny that is, how I did this really dangerous thing and I came out of it with these like very just minor injuries. Right after I pushed it, I was kind of concerned for what my parents would say really, instead of my own safety. But I'd say about 2 minutes after, once we all got inside, that's when I guess it all hit me and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just so shaky afterwards and I couldn't believe what I had done. And it was just a crazy moment for me, really.
Yeah, when she came in, she had a rush of adrenaline and she didn't even feel that she was injured.
Being that close to the bear, I mean like right here, have you had nightmares since then?
I've actually had one nightmare and it's just like constant paranoia now. There's this one dream that I had that there was this giant bear outside my window and it got into my house and it was like chasing me. But it feels really silly and all, but I guess that now I'm just a bit more paranoid.
Do you know what kind of bear it was?
The bear was a California black bear and it probably weighed around 250 pounds. It was, when I pushed it, I actually had my phone in one hand and I had a gardening glove in the other. So I guess it was really unfortunate this one time I get to touch a bear. I can't feel how soft it is, but I can say for one that it was pretty squishy and that's all I can really remember. And I think I was just more concerned with my safety and the dogs than to remember how it felt to touch the bear.
And have you seen the same bear since?
We've seen the bear a lot of times. She's actually come into our neighbor's yard. She's in the trees like right outside our yard. She came the other day in our trash cans. She's around all the time.
Now, living out in the hills with all the wildlife, are you at all concerned that the bears might, come after some of the animals, eventually injure your dogs or maybe even one of you?
I think that's always a concern. The bears getting too close again or our dogs getting too close. It's just one of those horrible things that might happen and it is scary, but we are trying to just take all the measures to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, we're taking precautions. Every time that we go out, we make sure that we look first, and now we have a bear horn and a bear spray.
So, if you were faced with the same situation again, do you think you'd do the same thing?
I think there's a part of me that wouldn't do this again. Though it's really noble and brave and it takes a lot, it's just not really safe at all. Who knows what could happen the next time if it did repeat. I got really lucky and I don't think I would do that again. I'd probably try some other way now that I know information with and how to handle bears and what to do.
And what about you, Lily? If you saw a bear going after Valentina, would you push it away?
I don't know, in that moment, I think it's just the adrenaline and the fight or flight that takes over you and you don't know what you could do or what you're capable of. But I thought about me looking at what was happening. If this was another instance, I probably would have run to save Hailey and Valentina if I would have seen this.
So, last question. Do you believe in miracles or think that maybe there was a miracle involved in this incident?
Oh, I definitely believe in miracles. I think this was an intervention from heaven or all the gods together came in unison to save my daughter. I do believe that miracles exist.
I'd say this is just, I don't know if I believe in miracles. It's just one of those crazy, crazy things and coincidences. Well, maybe the stars did align and it was a miracle, but I don't know. Life is just absolutely insane, and I guess you can't predict anything.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye, Gunner.
Well, there you have it. Thank you all so much for joining us. We had an amazing episode, and for the Miracle Show, I'm Kevin Sizemore.
And I'm Gunner Sizemore, and we'll see you next time.